Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series on the synthesis of yoga with our beloved Ranga. We are in the Yoga of Divine Works in Chapter 2 of Self-Consecration, page 70. Beginning with the sentence, "If the change comes suddenly."
Okay. So, in the next two paragraphs, he discusses the case where the change from an ordinary life to a spiritual life comes with a suddenness. Okay, something happens, and then you awake to circumstances, and then you look for the meaning of life and the problems that were bothering you. You start looking for them. It could be a death, it could be an accident, it can be anything, something usually which is a bothersome thing, and then you start questioning values. So when the change is sudden. Then in the next paragraph, he says it may not be sudden, but the change from an ordinary life to a spiritual life can be slow. So these are the two paras that we'll be doing today. Okay?
And maybe you could go over the previous one, because that was so beautiful also.
So what I'll do, I'll read out the summary in my words of what he has said in the previous para. Whatever be the way the desire for a spiritual life is born, the more important part is the decisive will to achieve it. The consecration to God must be complete, not partial. Every part of the being, mind, heart, will, must dedicate itself to this most difficult task. The mere mental acceptance of the spiritual life is not sufficient. The upward and inward reorientation of the being from the outward to the inner must be firm, sincere, complete in the inner being. Mind's enthusiasm, the heart's emotional commitment, the will's determination, all are needed for the great transformation. Only the mind's conviction without the heart's aspiration may not be enough. The entire being must be unidirectionally polarized without distraction and procrastinating delays. Big words, and I've invented my own word. Unidirectionally polarized in one way. Okay? And without distraction and procrastinating delays. The yoga is too great and serious a matter for a light-hearted and casual approach. Of course, this is no easy task, and the total commitment will slowly and gradually grow in the being. But the central sincerity must be real and ever present. Seeking God must be a full-time preoccupation. Consecration to God must be total and full. This is what he said. He's warning you very clearly that yoga is not to be started in a very casual and haphazard manner. It must be a firm decision. Yes, this is what I want now. And the change must come. So, now we'll read and the change, how it comes. It can come, as I said, in two ways. It can be sudden through a very often an unpleasant experience. It could be the death of somebody, it could be an accident, it could be a questioning of values. If someone is very attached to his job, he's fired and he doesn't know what to do now. So it's a great crisis. So this sort of thing, something happens and then you start questioning the values. So it can be sudden, it can be slow. So first paragraph, the sudden change. If the change comes suddenly and decisively by an overpowering influence, there is no further essential or lasting difficulty. The choice follows upon the thought or is simultaneous with it, and the self-consecration follows upon the choice. The feet are already set upon the path, even if they seem at first to wander uncertainly, and even though the path itself may be only obscurely seen and the knowledge of the goal may be imperfect. The secret teacher, the inner guide, is already at work, though he may not yet manifest himself and may not yet appear in the person of his human representative. Whatever difficulties and hesitations may ensue, they cannot eventually prevail against the power of the experience that has turned the current of life. The call, once decisive, stands. The thing that has been born cannot eventually be stifled. Even if the force of circumstances prevents a regular pursuit or a full practical self-consecration from the first, still the mind has taken its bent and persists and returns with an ever-increasing effect upon its leading preoccupation. There is an ineluctable persistence of the inner being, and against it circumstances are in the end powerless, and no weakness in the nature can for long be an obstacle. So very reassuring words that the goal is sure and certain depending upon your intensity of aspiration and effort. Okay? So, language is very clear and but there are certain stresses that we have to look at. So, we'll go through each line and point out the stresses that he's putting on certain words. Okay? This whole paragraph, as I said, when the change comes suddenly, because when a change comes suddenly, it has a certain force. Okay? You suddenly realize that you have been wasting your time, and how is it that I was missing the inner sense of things? And then you start wondering. I think I was mentioning last time, there's a lady in the ashram whose father passed away. And instead of sitting and grieving and, she suddenly, the opposite experience came for her. She had the experience of the self, calm, quiet, peaceful, and a certain whole range of explanations came to her. Okay? So it can happen that way. In her case it was through a death, but it can be for other reasons also. If the change comes suddenly and decisively, note that. Sometimes it doesn't come suddenly and decisively. The word decisively, your decision is sure now that you want to do this. The change can come suddenly, but you may still not be inclined to do the yoga. So it has to be decisive. By an overpowering influence, there is no further essential or lasting difficulty. There is no further essential or lasting difficulty. He is not telling you that difficulties won't be there. But they won't last if your decision is firm. Difficulties are bound to be there. Bound to be there because your human nature is imperfect and all the human natures have to be removed. Okay? It's like cancer coming in one part of the body, and it's a painful thing to remove it. So there are so many impurities in yourself. So those impurities to remove, not that easy. We are always attached to things.
But no further essential or lasting difficulty.
Yes, it cannot last, provided your faith is firm. Okay. The choice follows upon the thought or is simultaneous with it. Okay. So, first the thought comes that I have to start yoga. And then you make a choice. So Swamitra is showing you even the subtle sequence of events. So he's saying, first the thought comes to you, sudden change comes. And then you say, okay, now I am going to choose the spiritual life. Or he's saying, it can be simultaneous. So there can be a gap between the experience, and after maybe 5 days or 6 days or 1 month, you decide that no, I am going to start my spiritual life. Or it could be simultaneous. Immediately the experience comes, you decide that there is no other way for me. Very interesting, the language, if you see carefully. There is a sequence or there may not be a sequence. The choice follows upon the thought or is simultaneous with it. And the self-consecration follows upon the choice. So, even after the choice is made, the practical part of it, the self-consecration also comes. So there's a whole sequence. First of all, the experience of suddenness or the thought, and then you have a choice, and then you start putting it into practice. Self-consecration. Okay? The feet are already set upon the path, and even if they seem at first to wander uncertainly, and even though the path itself may be only obscurely seen, and the knowledge of the goal may be imperfect. You may not know what to do, you may not even see what you have to do. The goal also may not be very clear, but the change has come. Because the inner being is first affected, and the outer mind, life, body still can be in confusion. The inner being is the one that has to change first. Since we are mentioning inner being, let's again recapitulate what a man is, okay? So, the man is an individual, but he is part of the universe. This we cannot forget. We don't think ourselves to be a part of the universe, but you are nothing but the universe in a condensed form. You are a wave in the sea, and the wave is always part of the sea. Okay? This is an important thing. That is the reason why you can have a cosmic consciousness. You can become the cosmos, because you are nothing but that. It's like the wave is a form of the sea. The wave cannot exist without the sea. So you cannot exist without the universe. The universal, what about your body? It's a small formation of universal matter. Your vital is a small formation of universal prana, energy, power. Your mind is a small formation of universal plane of thought. Okay? Mind plane of consciousness. Then go to the deepest part of yourself, the soul. The soul is divine. The divine, the oversoul is infinite. Your soul is an individual soul, a part of the divine consciousness. Amsha Sanatana. You are a part of the infinite. So, you have an outer mind, outer vital, outer body. This is the shallowest part of you. Okay? I'm telling you because the inner being, you have to understand what the inner being is. So, very easy to understand if you think of yourself as a house. Okay? I am the house. I am sitting in the front room and I am looking out through my windows and doors, which are your senses. Your senses are the doors and windows of your house. How much are you seeing? The little bit that is there, as much as you can see outside. That's all you know of the world. Okay? Then you have a first floor, second floor, third floor. You may not have. Okay? But there is a cellar. That's your subconscious. That's also part of you. You are not conscious of subconscious, but you have a cellar. Okay? Then you have the foundation, which is the inconscient. Then you go into your house. Okay? And the inner rooms are there. Now you don't have access to your doors and windows. You have gone into yourself. That's a trance that you go into. You have an inner vital, You have an inner mind, inner vital, inner physical. The inner physical is the subtle physical. And then you emerge and go to the back of your plot and you are open to the sky. You have a kitchen garden at the back. It's all part of you. We are not conscious of that. When we sleep, we are going into our inner being. So you have an outer being of the body, mind, life. Okay? You have an inner vital, inner physical, inner vital, inner mind. This is a much wider and much more knowledgeable than the surface being. So when you enter into your inner mind, you can, all your intuitions and intimations come from the inner mind into your outer mind. You go even deeper and you are in the kitchen garden. And what's the speciality of the kitchen garden? It's open to the sky. So in other words, that's the intra-conscient, which is also part of you. If you go sufficiently deep into yourself, you will be in touch with the cosmos. That's also an experience that one can have. Okay? And the psychic being is there, deep inside, behind the inner mind, inner vital, inner physical. So you have an outer structure, you have an inner structure, and the psychic being is there inside. And if you go into your intra-conscient, which is the open to the sky. In other words, everything that is there in the universe is open to you. So the phenomenon of hypnotism takes the patient into the intra-conscient with a small link to the surface being, because then he can go on talking. He is actually inside, but when he is responding to the doctor, he is the link with the outer being, he is going on talking. But he is not aware of the physical world. His eyes may be open, but he is inside. That's how the hypnotist works, okay? So that's the intraconscious. So what are you? You are body, mind, life, which is the shallowest part of you. You have an inner being. You have an intraconscious, which is open to this being, to the sky. Then you have a subconscious, you have an inconscient, and you also have the superconscious planes of yourself. So you are part of the cosmos. And you can get rid of your limitations of the outer mind, outer life body, and become the cosmic. So this we have to keep in mind. When you do yoga, the change doesn't come in the outer being. It first comes in the inner being. The inner being becomes pure, and then slowly the inner being starts giving you intimations and guidance in the outer, and mostly it does not succeed very well. That's why the ascetics and the others, most of the yogas in India at least, they are interested only in the liberation. Take your consciousness out from body, mind, life and take it either into your intraconscious or take it above to the first floor, second floor, third floor. And the first floor, second floor, third floor, you may not have built, but you can build it. When you have the experience of the self, you are in the first floor. You have built your first floor. When you have experience of the intuitive mind, maybe you have built one more floor. When you have the overmind consciousness, you have probably built the fifth or sixth story. If you are in the supermind, that's the seventh floor. So this is what you are. This picture is very useful, this image, to understand much of what Sri Aurobindo says.
Could you just speak a little bit on sleep? Because you mentioned there sleep being a part of...
Yeah. What is sleep actually?
Yes.
The sleep is...
And dreams also.
Dreams also, yeah. So, when you are sleeping, your consciousness withdraws itself from the outer being. The outer being is your body, mind, life. It goes inside. Okay? Or it can go into your subconscious. Or it can go even into the inner mind, inner vital, inner physical. And these are all vast worlds. And you can go about there and have all sorts of experiences. Okay? So, you can do this consciously if you are sufficiently developed in yoga, or you can do it unconsciously. Mostly it is done unconsciously. Okay? And the being has experiences. And what is the dream? Dream is not something unreal. We feel that it is unreal. It is not. It's an actual experience in a subtle substance. You have gone and it's a subtler substance. So if you are in the inner vital, you are in the vital world. You can be in touch with the vital beings also. If you are in the inner mind, you are in touch with the beings who live in the plane of mind consciousness, the gods.
But generally, the experiences during the day often appear in some way in dreams, kind of surface.
If you remember your dream, okay, now what happens? Sometimes the experiences of the waking life get translated and go into your subconscious, because everything is stored in the subconscious. This is an important thing that we must realize, okay? So, suppose I am starting from my room when I came here and I walked all the way here. Everything that I saw or did not see on the path gets registered in my subconscious. There was a dog barking somewhere. There was a vegetable seller selling somewhere. If I am conscious, it's certainly going in. But even when I am not conscious, it goes into my subconscious. And these things come up. They come up because your waking consciousness is not allowing them to come up. So if the waking consciousness is removed, they come up. This is a very interesting thing. Again, to understand this phenomena, you can think of the stars. In the daytime, do you see the stars? But they are there. Why you don't see them? Because the daylight is actually hiding them. And when the daylight is removed, then you see the stars. The daylight is your waking consciousness. You have to understand the image correctly, because the daylight is actually ignorance and darkness, spiritually speaking. But for the image it is valid. So when the waking consciousness is removed, all the things which are there, the stars, you start seeing them. So what you are dreaming is nothing but experience of the inner worlds. But it can also be subconscious. When it is from the subconscious, it's a haphazard, pell-mell, and illogical things. Maybe you will experience dogs talking, okay? I've had the experience of animals talking, okay? Or all sorts of things can happen, funny things. Combination of things can happen. You had a talk with somebody and you had an incident with somebody, the two can get mixed up and you will have, if your dream is from the subconscious. But if your dream is from the intraconscious, it is usually meaningful and significant. That's a vision that people have. When they have visions, you may not be sleeping, you are meditating, your consciousness has gone in, you have a vision. Okay? Then it is meaningful. But the meaning comes hidden in symbols. And if you can't understand the symbolism, then you get guidance. But normally, you don't know what the symbols are. That's exactly what Sigmund Freud tried to do. He was the first who understood that there is more to man than, I'm talking about the West, not in India. He was the first one to understand that dreams have significance, they are real. So he started the trend towards that. But it was only very superficial. His study of the dream world was very superficial. Sri Aurobindo says very clearly, because he didn't go into the intraconscious, he didn't go to the supraconscious. He went only into the subconscious level. So that is they become very interesting symbols. And symbols also can be of three types. They can be personal to you, they can be universal symbols, and they can be also conventional symbols. Since we are discussing it, I might as well tell you, a conventional symbol is something that is everybody understands. For instance, a mountain. Okay? It refers to a height. You are climbing up. You are on a height. Okay? Or another easy way to understand is conventional. Okay? a traffic light. Red means stop. It need not mean stop, but it has become a convention. So that is also an image. Sometimes it can come that way. It can be universal, as I said, the mountain or the flight of a bird. Okay, the flight of a bird suggests freedom. You're free, so it can come in that form. That's why doves and peacocks are symbols of spiritual victory. The bird, okay, or the symbol can be personal. It may refer to you. I'll give you an example, then you'll understand. Suppose you have a problem with yourself, let's say of anger. And in the physical world, he may be your friend or he may not be your friend, but he is a very angry person. Okay? So in your dream, if you are seeing that this person is dying, it's a symbol saying that the anger in you is dying. I'm giving you only an example of a personal symbol. So there can be personal symbols, there can be universal symbols, there can be conventional symbols. So you have to understand the whole way of symbolism and understand that. The Greeks and the Indians understood that. The Greek mythology is full of symbolism. They're not just stories and myths. They're all symbolic. Okay? So, I'm telling you because of the inner being. When you are doing yoga, it's the inner being that changes first. The outer being does not change. It changes much later. Sri Aurobindo wants even the outer being to change, and that's why he says, I have to pull down the supermind. Only when that is possible, the outer being can change. Fully. Okay? We go back to our text.
Thank you. Yes.
Now, we went into that because very many people think that if he is doing yoga, why is he still getting angry? Why is he still feeling greedy? This is the reason. Inside, the inner being is pure, but the outer still persists with its old habits. So slowly you have to work on them. Sri Aurobindo does not accept only the inner being changed. If an inner being is changed, you are a yogi. But Sri Aurobindo wants you to be not only a yogi inward, but he wants you to be a yogi outside. Your body, mind, life also must become perfect. So, the choice follows upon the thought or is simultaneous with it. And the self-consecration follows upon the choice. The feet are already set upon the path, even if they seem at first to wander uncertainly, and even though the path itself may be only obscurely seen and the knowledge of the goal may be imperfect. The secret teacher, the inner guide, is already at work, though he may not yet manifest himself or may not yet appear in the person of his human representative. The human representative who is helping you is your guru, okay? Whatever difficulties and hesitations may ensue, they cannot eventually prevail against the power of the experience that has turned the current of the life. The call, once decisive, stands. The thing that has been born cannot eventually be stifled. Even if the force of circumstances prevents a regular pursuit or a full practical self-consecration from the first, still the mind has taken its bent and persists and returns with an ever-increasing effect upon its leading preoccupation. There is an ineluctable persistence of the inner being. That's why I went into the inner being. Okay? So, and against it, circumstances are in the end powerless. And no weakness in the nature can for long be an obstacle. So, the word bent is clear. Tendency. Okay? And the word ineluctable means impossible to avoid or evade. It is bound to happen. So, once the change comes suddenly with a bang, you are sure of your destiny. It may take a long time. Difficulties will be there. It's not that difficulties will not be there. But you are sure of the path. You may linger a little, you may go into side lanes, by lanes, but you are on the path. Now the next paragraph, he says that the change comes sometimes not so suddenly. It can come in a slow way. That's what we are going to read now. Okay? We go to the next para. But this is not always the manner of the commencement. The sadhaka is often led gradually, and there is a long space between the first turning of the mind and the full ascent of the nature to the thing towards which it turns. So if they are purposely keeping it a little vague, I'll come back to it. I'll first read the whole para. There may be, at first, only a vivid intellectual interest, a forcible attraction towards the idea, and some imperfect form of practice. Or perhaps there is an effort not favored by the whole nature, a decision or a turn imposed by an intellectual influence or dictated by personal affection and admiration for someone who is himself consecrated and devoted to the highest. In such cases, a long period of preparation may be necessary before there comes the irrevocable consecration. And in some instances, it may not come. There may be some advance, there may be a strong effort, even much purification, and many experiences other than those that are central or supreme. But the life will either be spent in preparation or a certain stage having been reached, the mind pushed by an insufficient driving force may rest content at the limit of the effort possible to it. Or there may even be a recoil to the lower life. What is called in the ordinary parlance of yoga, a fall from the path. This lapse happens because there is a defect at the very center. The intellect has been interested, the heart attracted, the will has strung itself to the effort, but the whole nature has not yet been taken captive by the divine. It is only acquiesced in the interest. It has only acquiesced in the interest, the attraction or the endeavor. There has been an experiment, perhaps even an eager experiment, but not a total self-giving to an imperative need of the soul or to an unforsakable ideal. Even such imperfect yoga has not been wasted, for no upward effort is made in vain. Even if it fails in the present or arrives only at some preparatory stage or preliminary realization, it has yet determined the soul's future. It's a very interesting para. So, the path may be longer, but it will come slowly. The change can come. When the change comes slowly, it's a different path. So that's what it's describing. It's very interesting, and we'll go through each sentence. But this is not always the manner of the commencement. Everybody doesn't have the luck of a sudden awakening. Okay, I know of a boy, young boy, who came to the ashram, and he knew that the press is taking people for work because we had a lot of labor problems at that time. So those who were keen, they were coming to us and saying, can I get a job here? Can I work here? We said that it's not a job. You want to be in the ashram, and so what we will do, we will allow you to work. We will give you the minimum. We will give you a room, we will give you food, and we will also provide the minimum necessities. But it won't be a job and you won't get a salary. Okay? So if you are willing for that, you can come. So many people used to come. Okay. The many other departments also started that same problem because the labor problems were too many. So we had these sadhaks who were coming. So one boy came to me and told me that for a very short time, I went out of my body. And then when you are out of your body, your identification with body, mind, life is gone. So all the ignorance, all the stupidity, all the limitations go away. So you have realized what your real consciousness is. So it changes your life completely. Then he came back into his body, but he remembered the experience. That was the U-turn that he had, a sudden experience. So it can come in so many ways. As I told you, the experience of a death or experience of an accident. There was one child in the ashram here. not ashram, but ashram related people. The mother's embroidery department? In the corner, mother's embroidery department is there. That house belonged to Dorasamy Iyengar. Dorasamy Iyengar in the 1930s, was a very well-known lawyer. He was an advocate. Very honest, very straight, and absolutely highly rated in India. Okay. In fact, it was he who turned towards Sri Aurobindo, and the ashram main building is actually 4 buildings. And he bought one of those buildings. Okay. And the embroidery department also he bought, and he used to live there with his wife. His daughter, okay, had a young son, 9-year-old, who got run over by a truck. Now, can you imagine the condition of the mother? 9 years the boy has lived and he is taken away. You start questioning the purpose of life. Why did you wait to take him away for 9 years? Why didn't you take him away very early? Why did you give him birth at all? What is the meaning of, he lived 9 years, he could not complete his life. So what is the purpose of this? You start questioning, all these values come in. Okay? So a death can be very, very traumatic, and it can turn you and you start questioning everything. So that's why I mentioned death. So it can come through great sorrow. Okay? I know of a boy, he used to work he's not an ashramite, he used to work there. Very idealistic. He and his friend were both from the Indian Institute of Technology from Madras. Okay? IIT M, Madras. And they passed their exams, but they were idealists. So they came here and he started helping the poor. He opened a press for poor people in that area beyond the lighthouse, okay, where there's a leper colony and all that. So he didn't care. He was an idealist. So he set up a school for children. And those children, he used to teach them work in the press. And he used to run the press, and the money earned from the press, he used to use for his school. So he's doing both. He's teaching them a vocation as well as this. Such was his idealism. Okay. When he got married, okay, this boy, I forget his name, but a very nice boy. When he got married, within 6 months his wife died. So imagine what happens to him. He lost interest in life completely, and he went away to the Himalayas. So Sri Aurobindo is talking in the first of this type of experiences, when sudden change comes. Okay. So the passage we are reading now is the other one, but this sort of thing can happen. A sudden change. Your destiny is sure. But the change can come slowly, and then what happens he is describing. So we'll read that now. The sadhaka is often led gradually, and there is a long space between the first turning of the mind and the full ascent of the nature to the thing towards which it turns. I was telling you that he has kept it purposely a little vague. The full ascent of the nature to the thing towards which it turns. Now, what is the thing towards which it turns? Is it God? Not necessarily. You may be an idealist, you may want truth, or you may want love. So what you are wanting, it will turn you to that. That's why he's keeping it a little vague. The thing towards which it turns. That thing could be truth. That thing could be honesty. That thing could be love. It can be so many, or it could be knowledge you want. So whatever you are wanting, it will turn you to that. Okay? That's why he has kept it in inclusive language, not exclusive. Okay? There may be at first only a vivid intellectual interest, a forcible attraction towards the idea, and some imperfect form of practice. Okay? So,
but is it not all relating to yoga or to this whole passage?
The whole passage is referring to your turn from an ordinary life to a spiritual life.
Right.
But it's a very slow process. Oh. You're not really interested. You're attracted. Oh, wow. This is fantastic. When people hear about Auroville, and they say, my God, this is fantastic. The experiment is nowhere in the world. A free society, and no compulsion of any sort, and human unity, 50, 60 nations are represented there, and this is unbelievable. So you are attracted tremendously. But so many people will come, but they also go away. No? So many have gone away. So that's what he's saying, that it can be a slow process. The yoga can be slow. There may be at first only a vivid intellectual interest, a forcible attraction towards the idea, and some imperfect form of practice. Or perhaps there has been an effort not favored by the whole nature. So what does it mean? Your mind may be very much attracted, but the vital is still got its own desires, and great attraction for the normal life is there. Okay, there can be interest in food, clothes, your own job, your family. You want to build a house. Also, I know of several cases, but I'll just mention one case. I won't take the name, but he was very well-to-do, and he had an excellent job. He was a sales manager in a company, a big company. And a very satisfied life. But he was attracted to the ashram. But when he used to come here, the attraction of the ordinary life is again there. Swinging up and down. That's what Srimad is describing. It can very often happen like that. Okay, so there may be first only a vivid intellectual interest, a forcible attraction towards the idea, and some imperfect form of practice. Or perhaps there is an effort not favored by the whole nature. Neither your mind may be interested, your vital may not be interested. Or your vital may be very interested, that's rare. But the mind may find all sorts of objections. So there can be, the whole nature is not favoring the effort. Okay, so a decision or a turn imposed by an intellectual influence or dictated by personal affection and admiration for someone who is himself consecrated and devoted to the highest. So, yes, there are many people who have seen Champak Lal, okay, and they say, my God, look at this man, okay, and admiration and all that. So they also want to achieve what he has been able to achieve. That's what Srimad is saying. Through affection, personal affection and admiration for someone who is himself consecrated and devoted to the highest. In such cases, a long period of preparation may be necessary before there comes the irrevocable consecration. Many people used to write to Sri Aurobindo saying that we would like to do a yoga. Then Sri Aurobindo would ask them, why? No, because I had an experience and I had this experience and that. Then Sri Aurobindo would say, he can see through the letter, he can contact the person and understand his psychological setup. So he would tell him that you are not yet ready for this yoga, okay? But you prepare yourself and do the sadhana that you are doing in the outside world, and when you can come for darshan if you want, and when you are ready, I will call you. So, the whole being is not ready, part of it is attracted. That can also happen. Many cases, he used to say that. In some cases, he's what is your aim in yoga, he would ask. That's why Srimad is saying, the thing towards which it turns, okay? It may not turn towards the integral yoga. It may turn towards the Jnana Yoga. It may turn towards the Bhakti Yoga. It may turn towards the Karma Yoga, but not the integral yoga. So he would ask them, what is your aim in doing yoga? So they would say, I want peace, I want liberation. Then Srimad says, no, not my yoga. If you want liberation, go to Ramana Maharshi. Okay? But my yoga is not only liberation, much more than that. So everybody is not meant for the integral yoga. It's not just one of the yogas. It's a very special and difficult thing. Okay? So affection for someone who is himself consecrated and devoted to the highest. In such cases, a long period of preparation may be necessary before there comes the irrevocable consecration. So note the word irrevocable. Once the mind is made, there is no turning back. That reminds me again, irrevocable consecration. There was a gentleman here, he was a German. His name was Gunther. I don't know if some people know him. Did you know Gunther? No.
I remember Gunther.
Okay.
Yes.
He was a very interesting man. And he was an authority in Germany of thermodynamics or something like that. He was a scientist and he was a professor. But he got interested in yoga. Okay. So he came here. But sharp intellect. So what he did, to make sure that he does not go back, he completely wound up his life there. Money, house, everything. And then he came here. Cutting the link between the past and his, making sure that he won't go back. Irrevocable. So, very few people can do that. I remember in 1970, I think it was, there were riots in Pondicherry. And he used to live very close to the press. Okay. And everybody was told to remain at home and not come out. But I realized that nobody is there in the press and it could be attacked. So I took permission from them. I said, no, I am going to go to the press and I will remain there with the others. And Gunter also was there very near the house. So we called him also to be with us because the food, one person is to go out and get the food. So Gunter was with us for 2 nights in that. And we used to have a lot of discussions. So that is the time when he revealed all these things. A wonderful man. Can everyone do that? Make sure that your links are absolutely cut. You wind up entirely and then you come here. Irrevocable. Okay? So, in such cases, a long period of preparation may be necessary before there comes the irrevocable consecration. And in some instances, it may not come. Okay? There may be some advance, there may be a strong effort, even much purification, and many experiences other than those that are central or supreme. Now, what do you mean by this? What are the experiences that are other than those central or supreme? Central or supreme are only 2. Experience of the self or experience of the psychic being. These are the central and supreme. All the other experiences are beginning. For instance, Sai Baba, he could materialize things. So he has some entry into subtler forms. Okay? Or there is that boy Uri Geller who could bend spoons by just looking at them. Okay? Or there may be some form of power. So these are all not the central and supreme experience. So all sorts of experiences can come. You may be crystal gazers. They have some opening to the subtler planes and they can tell you your future. It's not humbug. Sometimes they can say. But sometimes it's a mixed thing. But some will be able to tell you correctly. Okay. So these are the experiences that Swami is talking about. Some entry into the subtler planes of consciousness. Okay. So central or supreme, other than those that are central or supreme. But the life will either be spent in preparation or a certain stage having been reached, the mind pushed by an insufficient driving force may rest content at the limit of the effort possible to it. You are interested, but the capacity for yoga is not there and you have to slowly develop it. So a long preparation is necessary. That's why we have in Indian system, we have the word adhikara. You must have the capacity and the call for it. Everybody doesn't have the call. So if the call is there, then you have the adhikara. You have the right to enter into the spiritual life. The mind pushed by an insufficient driving force may rest content at the limit of the effort possible to it. Or there may even be a recoil to the lower life. We have had instances in the ashram where such things also have happened. The recoil is very strong and your desires are there and then you go back. So several cases have been there. Many have gone back. They have many experiences and then you go back and live an ordinary life. There was one, there were 2 gentlemen like that. One gentleman's correspondence who went away like that is now coming in the bulletin. He is Dr. Nayak. Okay. He had many experiences with Sri Aurobindo, many. But finally, one day, he went back. And then we got in touch with them through the archives, and all his letters and all that, his children, they came and gave all those things. So now that is coming out in the bulletin. I think we are in the 60th or 50 or 60 episodes have already come in bulletin. Then there was another man also who had many experiences, and he is the one who had, his name was, he also, I can mention the name because you won't know him. His name was Govind Bhai Patel. Yes. Yeah, okay, you know him. He used to live in the house where there is the drawing office, where the building is there in the corner of the ashram. He used to live there upstairs, where Barin, Sri Aurobindo's brother, also used to live there. So he used to live there. And he had some experience of the overmind. And he told Sri Aurobindo, again the ego is coming in, and told Sri Aurobindo, now that I have realized the overmind, let us run the ashram together. You and I. Okay? So finally, naturally this attitude is wrong. So he could not survive long. He went away. Okay? And he came back afterwards also. I met him actually. It's very interesting the way I met him. I'll tell you how it happens. So, when he went back like that, there's a little funny story about it, okay? So, Amal Kiran, with his tremendous wit as always, okay, he says, I have coined a spiritual epitaph for him. You remember the word?
Yes.
Undermined by the overmind. So that man was there. I was reading the letters once, long ago. I'm talking of 30, 40 years ago. I was reading the letters, and Sri Aurobindo is describing in great detail what should be done and what should not be done, the difficulties of the nature and all that. Then I was wondering who this man is. Okay, I would really like to know who this man is. I went to the archives and found out that it is a gentleman called Govind Bhai Patel. And he was not there in the ashram. So, and that letter was tremendously interesting to me. And I was, 2-3 days it was going on in my mind. Okay. And I used to work in the press. Yeah? So many customers used to come, many people used to come. And one day someone walked in with a hat and a coat and trousers and a cane. Okay. He came in, he sat down opposite me. And he told me, my name is Govind Bhai Patel. So it was so interesting that he was the one who was undermined by the overmind. But when he went back to Gujarat, there also he had many experiences. But not in the ashram. He went away. So this is what Sri Aurobindo is describing here. You have a word in Sanskrit for that, Bhrashta Yogi. Bhrashta.
Yoga Bhrashta.
Yeah, Yoga Bhrashta. So he has fallen from the path. But even if you fall from the path, you will resume your journey. But for the time being, it's a setback. So that's what Sri Aurobindo is talking about here. Okay. So he's saying that we will recoil to the lower life. What is called in the ordinary parlance of yoga, a fall from the path. He's using English words here. In the Indian language, we say yoga bhrashta. He has fallen back from the bhrashta. The intellect has been interested, the heart attracted, the will has strung itself to the effort, but the whole nature has not been taken captive by the divine. Now, I'll point out something interesting here, Sri Aurobindo's use of language. He uses images all the time. Savitri is full of images, okay? But even his prose is full of images, and we have to disengage the image to understand what he's saying. There's an image there. I don't know if you noticed it. The will has strung itself to the effort. When you string a bow, okay, it's under pressure and then you focus. So the will is ready. It has strung itself to the effort. That's the image he's using. One word and he has given you a whole image. Very often he does that. Okay? It's a question of language. Very interesting language he uses. But the whole nature has not been taken captive by the divine. It has only acquiesced in the interest. You have agreed that yes, I am interested. The attraction or the endeavor. There has been an experiment, perhaps even an eager experiment, but not a total self-giving to an imperative need of the soul or to an unforsakable ideal. People can hesitate a lot. Okay. Even such imperfect yoga has not been wasted. Now this sentence also is very interesting. No effort is ever wasted. Okay. Some effort can be wasted. Yes, there can be wasted. Suppose I am studying medicine, 5-year course. I do 2 years and I decide that this is not for me. I go into engineering. I have wasted 2 years. So there can be waste in your effort. But here in yoga, every effort that you make is not wasted. It's a very interesting thing. Okay? And the way you score in games follows this principle. I'll point out certain things. For instance, you are playing volleyball. Okay? In volleyball, the points that you've got remain with you. They are there. The effort that you make in yoga is there in you. You don't lose it. Okay? So, but in tennis it's not like that. In tennis, suppose you win the first 2 sets. Okay? And in the third set, you have match point. You are on the point of victory. But you can lose from there. So the way of counting also is very important. So you are being assured that it's not like that. Or like in snakes and ladders. No? You can go right up to the 99th square, but there's a snake waiting for you there, and then you fall down again. But in yoga, it is not like that. Every effort that you make is there with you. It's a steady climb. You followed what I spoke about the games. Even when you feel that you have reached, you may fall again. That's possible, but not in yoga. Whatever you have gained remains with you. You don't lose it. That's why even in the Gita there is a quote like that. Every effort that you make, even the smallest effort, nothing is ever lost in yoga. Okay? So, even such imperfect yoga has not been wasted, for no upward effort is made in vain. Even if it fails in the present or arrives only at some preparatory stage or preliminary realization, it has yet determined the soul's future. So whether your entry into the yogic field is sudden or it is slow, the aim finally is to reach the goal, and you will reach the goal. It's a question of time and effort.
Thank you so much. Namaste all, and thank you for attending.